to another episode of the Key to Games podcast. We are going to be discussing the topics of marketing and indie development for tonight's show. I am, of course, Josh Beiser, and joining me, my co-host, who's currently working on the game Samurai Pig, Joshua Reyes.
Hey, how's it going, Josh? I'm excited to be here. Let's get talking about marketing and indie games. Very excited. I love this topic personally, so I got a lot to discuss. And I know you just came across and talked with some recent people, so you have a lot of new information that you're ready to discuss also yourself.
Yeah, but I did a interview with a reporter. She wanted to write a story about the indie dev scene. And she says she plays video games for about 15 years, but she just recently started hearing about like indie developers and indie games thanks to her husband.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's that very strange thing about marketing, especially when it comes to the independent space. And this is kind of like why I wanted to talk about it here. Is that when most people think about marketing, or at least think about video game marketing, they think, TV advertisements and magazines, excuse me, a big old billboard as you're driving. And while that is certainly marketing, it is also completely out of scope for any indie developer. Like, people ask me, what's indie dev? I would say, if you have money for a Super Bowl commercial, you're not an indie dev anymore.
You're not an indie dev.
I think that may be the line we can establish there.
That's a good line in the sand to let them know what the difference. Right. I mean, I want to see if this actually works. Hold on. I'm going to try something here. So right now, this is like, if you can see this on my screen, this would be like a typical marketing strategy, right? There's a lot involved here, right? Like you have management, offline integration, traffic building, social media, optimization, conversion analyst, website design, planning. And those are just parts of it, right? Those are just parts that you would do in a marketing strategy. Most indie game developers are going to barely be able to do social media, right? And barely be able to do traffic building and stuff like that. So when we come down to it, it is definitely like for indie devs, they see this and they're like, how can I even market my game? And what I'd say is that you start where you start. If you're just beginning, the easiest thing to do would be to get into social media, right? Get into social media, start networking and things like that. But basically you start where you are in your game dev journey will necessitate what you need to be doing. If you're just starting out, clearly you can't afford to start working on optimization processes because you have nothing to optimize. But we can definitely start with social media, right? And you can start with social media, start tracking your metrics, start doing things, and that is a part of marketing. And you start getting some numbers, and from there, then you could start optimizing your numbers. Like, well, these posts didn't do so well, or this post didn't do so well. Twitter isn't working out for me so well. Maybe I should try Reddit. Reddit isn't working out for me well. Let me try TickTok. TickTok isn't working out for me well. I can try a newspaper article, a local newspaper article. I could go to a local school, speak to some game developers there, network around. There's so many different ways you can do to market your game. So we don't just have to simplify it into that, right?
And there's certainly a lot of ways for indie developers to try and get their name out there, and it is something that I think, as we've said many times on Game Wisdom, as we've spoken to a lot of developers in the past, it's something that's become more and more important in the last, I would say, we could maybe argue the last 5 to 10 years. I think that's when
10 years. I'd say about 10 years, yeah.
It got really big, and this was something I was talking with the reporter about the other day, that 15 years ago, Steam was it. That your whole marketing strategy was just to be on Steam because there was there was creation. You couldn't just be on Steam. You had to know somebody. You had to be an established person. There was, I think, credence, or there was credibility being on Steam 15, 20 years ago. That if your game was on the store, it must be of high quality.
Exactly.
And obviously, that made it very hard to get your game out there. Or it made it hard for somebody who was new or didn't exactly have any real footing to then say, well, I want to put my game there. I want to try and make a living off of it. And it's been, I think, a double-edged sword, I think we could say, with Steam opening up. I mean, again, we have 30 to 50 games being released weekly now. Is every one of those games going to be, worthy of success? No. But in the same breath, games that even could have a moderate to low chance of success are being completely snuffed out. And
Right.
it's one of those things where you can't rely on Steam to sell your game. And I think that's something that every indie developer has either learned the hard way or they are putting their heads in the sand and pretending that doesn't happen.
Pretending it doesn't happen. Exactly, because that's just the way it is. Um, yeah, and you can't expect. I mean, even if you could, like, even if you get your indie game published on, say, a console, like for example, PlayStation 4. Go take a look at the PlayStation 4
Mm-hmm.
indie games or free to play games. Everything's buried. You couldn't even find on PlayStation, which releases like maybe I think it was about 700 games got released last year on the PlayStation, and they're all going to get buried. Ghost of Tsushima, Elden Ring, all those are going to curb stomp everything else, and no
Mm-hmm.
one's going to have time to play those indie games, right? Um, so yeah, so in that vein, you are definitely correct on that.
And to Chris's comment about Steam Greenlight, that was one of the things that had a decent idea, and yeah, the purpose I think was great, but then it ran into that issue of being heavily exploited, people
Exploited.
paying for reviews,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that problem whenever you kind of open up a store like this, that it just becomes, rife with so many games. And let me see. And Pugsape saying Games Pass, like Game Pass, I think is a good idea. It's going to be very telling, I think, about just how successful that's going to be for indie devs, specifically in terms of making money. Because as we've said, like the whole Netflix for games kind of model is definitely, I think, a little wishy-washy in terms of
Yeah.
how that's going to affect things.
What was the main question on that one?
For Chris, he said he liked Steam Greenlight, but it did need some fixing.
Yeah, definitely did need some fixing. So, if you, I think we were talking about this before when we were about four or five podcasts back when we were talking about too many games, and we were talking about curation. And I believe that like Steam Greenlight was like almost
Mm-hmm.
perfect, except for the way to exploit it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, if they could eliminate the exploitation, right? The ways that people pay for reviews and stuff like that, and you make some adjustments, I think you could bring it back, and that
Mm-hmm.
might be a really good way to help bring out a better curation, natural curation, player curation, and also that's kind of like a marketing research type way for the game developers also in themselves. Instead of the open, right now you have $100, you can go on Steam and put anything out there you want, and
Mm-hmm.
and so now we just have this massive flood, and so now you have, instead of a really nice curated, really hard to get into, like Steam was before, now it's just this with wide open, and how can you find through the noise anything that's other than it than severely marketed? How can you find the hidden gems like you were talking about, like mediocre okay games that definitely deserve a little bit of sunlight, a little bit of spotlight, because maybe they brought a new mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
something really neat to the game, but aren't able to get it across because it's just drowned out by the noise.
Mm-hmm. And that noise has become one of those deciding factors for a lot of developers because you need to make something happen with your game if you want to have any real chance of success. And as we've said before, just having that good game is not enough anymore. And you really do need to look outside of Steam, outside of the store itself, in order to do your marketing. And so, of course,
Yeah.
if we go down like the basic checklist, you're going to need some kind of landing page for you and your company. You need a press kit, you need some kind of social media presence. There's me, picture in picture right there. Now it's three,
It's
Josh.
3 Joshes.
Three for the price of one. There's your
That's
marketing
right.
strategy.
Three for the price of one. You got it, Josh.
But there are so many developers out there who they have nothing set up. And that is a huge problem. Like when I look on a Steam page and I see that there's no Twitter, there's no social media, there may not even be a website. The question remains, how are you expecting people to find your game?
Right. And you need to have your game in as many places as possible, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you need to, like, everywhere from Discord to Twitter to Reddit to the local newspaper to TikTok to Facebook to even LinkedIn. I mean, like, uh, I was actually surprised. I checked my email this morning and I got a lot of stuff going on from LinkedIn, which is really strange, right? But a lot of professionals like marketers and people like that like to use LinkedIn still. And so you like definitely want to be in all those avenues, right? And so that way you can reach as many, because you will be surprised at some of the places that I have met people through. You'd be like, oh, did you meet them through here? No, I met them through a newspaper contact, or I met them through, like, I just at a party. We went at a party and I got their card and we met, and that's it. Like you really have to go out there and put yourself out there and continuously. That's a part of marketing also, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
brand, who you are, um, what you stand for, because right, the game is just a part of it. I don't know what percentage the game is in the whole factor now. I wouldn't want to say it's 25% of the factor, or is it 50% of the factor and the rest is marketing and a little bit of that, because sometimes it's all of it, right? A bad game will totally destroy it. Bad marketing can totally. I've had games that looked really good and I didn't want to play them because the marketing was so bad, and I was like, that's some
Mm-hmm.
really cringe marketing that I don't know. So I wouldn't play it for that reason. Marketing can kill a game.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yep. And to WRF's comment, yeah, I've been hearing developers going on TikTok and using that as a
hmm
platform too.
hmm
Xavier Nelson, who did airport, uh, Alien Airport, or one of
with
those
the
very,
puppies,
yeah,
with the
something,
with the dogs, right? The
yeah,
alien airport dog puppy.
yeah.
Yeah, that game was wild,
Hmm.
amazing. Yeah.
He's been
hmm
doing stuff on TikTok, and yeah, like again, like that's the thing about marketing is that it is very much an ever evolving thing.
Always
Whatever is the
evolving.
newest thing, the newest platform, it is something you need to consider when it
Yeah.
comes to what you want to do. If you
hmm
remember when Switch started to blow up, there was that very brief period when Switch was very much a, this is where you want to be as an indie developer. But then, of course, what happened was everyone went to Switch, and then the problem once again found itself.
Yeah.
And again, I think ultimately, like I've said, and like what we've been talking about, you can't just rely on your game anymore to sell it. There's just too many games out there, and they don't even have to be of amazing quality. They can just be games taking up a listing on the now out box on Steam, and you have to look elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, just like, for example, if you go into a store, you walk into a store, and there's this one product. We're to say the product would be like Call of Duty, and Call of Duty bought this much section out in the game, so there's 4 rows of Call of Duty, and there was 3 other games that didn't get put up because
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duty took up so much space, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the power of marketing. With marketing, you're able to like drown out other people. You're able to squelch your competition in certain ways. Um, and one of the things as an indie marketer, we have to be aware of that we can't compete on that level. So we have to be creative. We have to get out in all kind of different sources that we didn't think were possible. We have to think out of the box, like you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
thinking out of the Steam box, right? Like we have to think way past the Steam box. And like you were saying, all social media. that's coming out, or any form of new and fresh communication that's being used, developers need to utilize that or jump into it and see how they could use that to their advantage, to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically, marketing is just like taking your product, summing it up. We want to package it like in a presentable format for people, give it identity, give it purpose, reason, brand it, and something that people can understand what it is, and just get it out there in as many avenues as possible.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully the stream is being somewhat stable. I'm noticing a lot of OBS weirdness right now. But
Mm.
yeah, you have to be able to package that game in a way that it is appealing to people. And when we say appealing, we mean to as wide of a market as you reasonably can be. You
Hmm.
don't want to make marketing that is going to basically repel people, whether it is because of low quality, because you're not representing the game right, or even if you're just using like the most stock footage boring of your game. Because we,
Hmm.
unfortunately, uh, when we do like indie inquiries here on the channel, I have certainly seen my fair share of poor trailers. And a poor trailer can just tank a game because that's going to be your kind of first thing a lot of people are going to see. And conversely, we've seen some amazing trailers, whether it's something like Darkest Dungeons, a Kickstarter announcement that really blew people away.
Right, right, right. But for sure, the trailer, definitely one of the most important things. I think I wanted to talk about the validity of a demo, but for sure, a quality trailer goes a long way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to get into the action quick, show the player what's going on. The player has to be able to watch the video and know what the game is about. So if you're way off base about it, like your game is a shooter and you're not showing any shooting, instead of you're showing dialogue, and you did a 30-second logo build up, uh, the game hasn't shown, and people will just go away. And I'm in the belief that first impressions aren't super important. I believe that now the way that information spreads, that we can, you know, do another impression later on. You're not just stuck with your first impression, but you don't really want to make a bad impression right when you
Mm-hmm.
first come out.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of developers, like you can like there is a difference I think between speaking to people in the industry and speaking to consumers. And I feel like this is
Right.
another area where developers tend to mess up on that because
Big time.
how you talk to your colleagues and people who are in the same space as you is far different than talking to somebody who has no idea who the heck you are. They don't care about your sob story. They don't care what you've spent on this game. All they care about is what screenshots am I looking at? What is your
Mm.
trailer? And if you can't hook those people, your game can still have an audience. And I think this is the thing we've said a lot of times that there are lots of niche games out there. There are games that have hardened fans who are willing to support your game, through thick and thin. But that could only be maybe 10%, 15% of your potential audience if you do a better job of marketing yourself.
Right, right. And that, again, that's why marketing is so important. And then like um for an indie company, again, like you have to start with what's within, what is within your means. What is your where do you stand right now, right? Do you even have a social media presence? If not, make one. Do you have a website? If not, make one. Right? Like we were talking about basic things that a game should have: menu, UI scalability, audio, color blindness, all of those things that a game are just expected to have, right? You need to have those for when you are marketing your game. There's basic expectations that we have to meet in the same vein.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Players now, like you were saying, they don't care. that you were very poor and you worked very hard to get to this point, or you did this or that. They just want to see the product and
Mm-hmm.
they just want to see the game, because we have reached a normalization now of game development where I don't think that gamers fully understand what goes beyond the process, but they understand that there's a process to this and it's been going on for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
to come out there and be like with a poor marketing campaign, graphics that don't match, cohesive list, no plan, it doesn't really fly anymore in our current market, right?
Mm-hmm. And as Chris said earlier, you still need a good game on top of all this, and
Still
that
need a good game.
and like therein lies the challenge for a lot of developers is that
Mm,
if you're a sole developer or a very small team, you may not have a marketer on your team. You may not have anyone who
right,
has social media presence, but
right.
it is something that has become very big because, like you said, the word needs to get out that it has to reach people if you expect your game to want to succeed.
Mm,
And I think, as a very interesting point, we've been seeing, I think, definitely a lot of praise for community managers, the
yes,
front facing people of these various
yes,
companies.
yes. I like
Um,
that. Becoming kind of like rock stars almost in the thing that the managers, people were
mhm,
actually plays. I think for Among Us, they were like the community manager did all this thing and they created it because it's big when you get people together behind your idea and the product and what you're trying to sell on the game. You have a community and the community is
mhm,
behind the game. They lift up the game. They tell other people about the game. They stream the game, so communities are really important. So I think that's why I like how community managers have been risen to kind of like rockstar level type things.
mhm,
Also QA, like
mhm,
QA testers have also got, they've been getting their shine. Like if you don't have quality QA, you don't have a very good. You might have a game that's all right, but it hasn't been tested and it's full of all the flaws that you've left in there, right? You know what I
mhm.
mean? So I do feel like some of these neglected people in our industry are starting to get their due, and we're starting to get more of a holistic approach of all of the players that are involved in creating this art.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from showing people how it's done. We could say the same thing about kind of the rise of more diversity and inclusivity when it comes to AAA companies by the fact
Hmm.
that so many indie developers really did that first.
Yes,
And when the consumer sees it being done right with this person, they're going to question why you're not doing it right. And it is very much that case of everything being pushed up by the games that do break out. But as we said, conversely, it also means that the people who are maybe like down here or lower, they either need to step it up or they're just going to keep sinking.
exactly, exactly, my friend. Um, let's see here. Where were we? You go ahead.
Um,
You go ahead.
and when you're trying to succeed when it comes to the marketing side, again, a lot of this has to be done while you're developing your game. Like one of the biggest no-nos that anyone who does marketing and PR will tell you is waiting until the last minute. Like waiting until
Yeah,
a month before your game is out or, 5 days before your game is out before you start
yeah,
letting people know about it. And
yeah.
it is very much going to be that slow burn. I see here with you two, with pushing that, with trying to grow here and on Medium and my main site. It's
Hmm.
something you have to do because the only way you're going to get that footprint is that you have to just keep hammering that home.
Hammer it right. It's consistency, consistency. You just have to keep hammering it home, like you said, and you just have to keep doing it. Like you can do it hard for 1 or 2 days, but if you drop off, people are going to forget. But if you're always constantly putting in the work, just that alone is going to give you clout and respect, and a lot more belief in you and who you are as a person, and trust that it develops in you. Right? If you're always doing it, but you have to be consistent with it for sure.
Hmm. And
How's the stream? I don't see any questions popping.
I think we're still good. And it
Okay.
is something that has to be very well considered
Mhm.
when you're building your actual game strategy up. because
Yeah.
you.
So,
Yep.
sorry. So, like, okay. So, and I'm not going to say that every game developer is starting out, and like when you're learning and it's your first game, even if it's your first game, like you should be practicing, right? We're not. I'm not saying you're gonna go hire a marketing team for your first time because you won't be able to afford it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like for your first game, start practicing, right? Okay, my first game that I'm going to start building. You set a goal. I'm going to finish this game in 6 months, 3 months, small
Mm-hmm.
scope game. Start up a Discord for your studio, or you, right? Start up a small YouTube channel if you don't want to do that, but start up a Discord, start up a YouTube, maybe one thing at a time that you can handle. Start with one thing, right? Start with a Twitter, see how the Twitter works. Start with a Facebook, start with a Reddit, right? I always say Facebook with like a little bit of disdain. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and start up something small, right, for your first game, and then on your second game when you're doing it, so you're going to do Discord, YouTube, and the Twitter, right? And so you'll have three and a little bit more. And as you grow and as you keep working at it and consistent, you start to meet new people, you start to network, and you start to learn new things, and then eventually your strategy will expand further with as need dictates, right? All of a sudden you have a wider audience because you've been doing it longer, you've been consistent, you've been hammering at it away. Like you said, with your YouTube channel, it just continues to
Mm-hmm.
grow, but it's only growing because you're putting in the work. You put in the work
Mm-hmm.
daily, like daily. I always see you working and grinding at it, and that's the reason it continues to grow. And it's the same thing here for game development and marketing, right? Marketing is just an aspect of it. So you have to continually keep working at it and continually keep learning at it. Don't be scared of marketing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's not. Marketing's not like a bad word or something you should feel bad about. I know a lot of. I just saw someone that I follow tweet, and they tweeted that they felt like there's a big issue with game developers and marketing, and they feel bad about charging for the games that they're making, right? And I think that's a whole other topic to discuss. I mean, it's about charging for your game because you should. It depends on the game, but you should charge for your game. You're putting in your work and whatever. That's something for another topic, but yeah, people feel a lot of game developers
Mm-hmm.
feel really uneasy with marketing, right? They're scared of it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't feel like they understand it or how to do it. And really, the thing is just to start doing it. Just to
Mm-hmm.
start doing it. Start small. Start slow. Because that's how it is. You're learning. You're learning how to move things out around on a screen. Well, you're learning how to post to social media. You're learning how to interact. You're learning how to capture gifts for your game and stuff like that. And let's go back because I think the original thing was have a plan. Have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So like the plan was, okay, I know my game's going to be three months, so my plan is I'm going to get kind of good at working with social media and posting and figuring out how to be consistent through this thing. So make multiple goals with your game. So the game is I have multiple goals with this game to be published. I'm going to create this game, publish it. I'm going to get this game out there. I'm going to practice with my social media. I'm going to practice networking. And then I'm going to take this code that I created and I'm going to move it on to my second game. So, like every game you're making, every project you're making, have multiple goals from it. So that way, from this goal that you said, I have 5 goals for this game, your next one will have 10. You feel me? And it's just
Mm-hmm.
compound effect of growing like that way. Might be babbling about that, but that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. To Chris's comment about example of a game that had really great design but still failed when it came to marketing. I
Mm-hmm,
was
mm-hmm,
trying to
mm-hmm.
think of one. I think
Oh
there's.
man, there's one just recent. Just one just recent. Apex Legends, but that's doing good now. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I think when it came out,
Let me see. There was one from a developer that I really liked, but it also just like completely disappeared. Let me see.
Fall Guys.
Let's see. It's from the developer of a Toki Tori. And this was from like a while ago. Two Tribes. Is it? No. Edge Rush. Hmm. Oh, here it is. Rive. Rive. This was a twin stick shooter. It was from the developer who did Toki Tori.
Toki
And
Tori.
it was a pretty great side-scrolling game, but it was also their final game for the company, and they, I think, went out shortly thereafter after this game came out, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And it is unfortunately something that we see from a lot of games where you will have a decent title, you'll have good gameplay, but this was something I was talking. We talked about this on the roundtable, I think, about what makes a game, market friendly. And it's not always about the gameplay, it's how you can really show it off. And it's why
Yeah.
we've seen games that have like amazingly detailed gameplay, your Slay the Spires, your
Hmm.
Library of Ruinas, pick any, grand strategy, 4X, whatever. And it is so hard to market those games. Adventure games, I think, is another big example of this. That it's very hard to show
Ooh,
somebody the
yeah.
excitement of watching, two portraits talking to each other with a conversation box at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, that's like I don't know, man. That's why I don't make those ones because I am I would have no idea how to market that. Um, let's see. Go ahead. I had a thought, but once you brought that up, you lost me there because now I'm trying to think how to market that game. Uh, you would have to like because again, it has a lot of things against it because for one, they're story driven. So if you stream it, it's spoiled, right?
Mhm.
And like there's a lot against that genre and how to market it, and even just marketing gives away the story itself,
Yeah.
right? And so, go ahead.
So I'm saying, like, the horror genre, I think, is also very similar in that respect.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
if your whole game is jump scare focused and you show your jump scares during the trailer, why should I play
Shouldn't
your
even.
game now?
Yeah, yeah. You're like, oh, it's just jump scares. That's cool. And then you've seen them, so why do you want to? You're not going to be scared when you play it.
Hmm.
So that's really hard. It is, and yeah, I don't know. A lot of those games are they're just in a bad situation marketing like
Yeah.
that.
And I like Chris's half joke there about you can't create an amiibo related to your game, you don't have enough strong enough branding. I mean, Shovel Knight is like 5 or 6 amiibos, so they certainly did something right there.
For sure. Oh, Shovel Knight's amazing.
Yeah, and branding is such a big factor. So is being able to talk, but having like that studio presence again is a part of your marketing. And something that Chris said earlier that about, the sob story may not work on everyone, but you still need to have a face. You still need to be able to show people that there is somebody behind, the profile pic, somebody behind the game, and that can help you. But at the same token, it also puts you on the target board. That if something goes
Yeah.
wrong, or if you do something, unethical or illegal, your name is now on the line there.
Yeah, that's kind of the route I've chosen. Like I'm out there, so like I put myself out as the face. So like they could definitely come up to me and say, "Why'd you do this?" or "What'd you
Mm,
do that?" And I am definitely would be the target. So I'm aware of that, but I feel like just the uh, at least having a human facing thing like this is me. This is the studio. We're humans. You can talk to us and I feel like it'll probably be a lot better approach for an indie studio than trying to act like something we're not, like a corporate entity or just like
mhm.
some kind of distance from the players in some way. I want to be able to be human and engaged with the players, you know.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, like to Chris' comment about people willing to support people more than companies, like that's been the whole indie impetus for the last 10 years. Is that when you talk to an indie developer, you are literally talking to the person who's making this game, not
exactly.
the PR person or the PR of the PR of the assistant of the person handling PR. And it
Hmm.
is such a different feel to it. And in the again with that double-edged sword, it also means that you have to be that again, you have to have that face of the company. And I just went to developers who are not good when it comes to marketing, when it's not good to talking, in
Hmm.
a conversation like this. again, like one of my most like awkward podcast interviews when I spoke with what was his name? Not was it Chris Taylor? No. Oh no, I forget his name now. The developer. Oh no, I have his book too. He like wrote out of GDC back in like 94, 95, talking about a dragon. Oh no, I can't believe I forget his name. I'm sure somebody will pick it up
What's
in
the
chat.
game? What's
Oh,
the game?
I don't remember the game that he worked on though. I think it was like he did like a lot of like war games, a lot of strategy stuff. But
Yeah.
he was famous for like giving the speech about like fighting a dragon, and then like storming out of his GDC talk, charging out of it. Oh
Wow.
no, I cannot remember his name, but I did an interview with him, and it was just so damn awkward. And again, like a lot of developers, they're not good doing public speaking, and there's no shame in that.
No.
I think could have been Chris Taylor or Chris. No,
Chris
Chris Taylor was
something.
Gas Powered Games and Total Annihilation, right?
And what did Oblitz Dev say?
But then they said, and Chris Crawford. Yes, thank you. That was the developer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, like with, and we could certainly have a talk about the whole Epic Games discussion. I think that's its own topic in of itself.
Bring it on.
But
I'm ready.
you have to be very mindful, and I think this cuts both ways when it comes to developers. That if you like, if, I don't know if you saw the Dominion developer just like, I don't know, like I'm not sure what the expression is like for like completely tanking your game, but
No.
he put in his patch notes this whole like anti-mask misogynistic rant in the patch note for his title, and then he doubled down on it on Twitter, and it's just like, wow, you really hate money, you really hate your game. And I know Dave Austria, and he puts on his Twitter he hates money. I think Dave Austria hates money less than this guy does. But you have to be really mindful of what you are putting out into the space.
Yeah, man.
And
Yeah.
if you're not, it will come back to bite you and haunt you forever and ever. And I've heard some stories which I am not privy to repeat in public about situations like this. And one of the things that I think is very mindful, this is kind of off topic, but it may kind of also be, is that indie development is a band of brothers and sisters. If you do something off the cuff, if you do something horrible, word will get out.
Yeah. Like this is I've said this many, many times. This is a small community.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in competition with each other. We're peers and colleagues and um indie devs. So yeah. And when I see people saying things in Discord or this and that, and I like to remind people that the game development community is really small. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is a big industry, but like the ones that are here and have been here for a little bit and are doing it, we're here. And so like whatever you say can come back to haunt you for a long time, and everything is kind of immortalized on the internet, immortalized like your Discord chat, like everything. And so that's just something to be aware. Like if you want to professionally be making games, like please don't post, like please be careful what you post and what you say, and just have some tact, and maybe before you post it, double think before you post it.
Yeah. One of the best advices I heard about that came from. Oh no, I can't. I've spoken to way too many developers. I can't remember their names. He worked at Clay Entertainment, and one of the things he said was whenever somebody left a comment on their message board, he would always wait at least 20 to 30 minutes before replying. Like he didn't just want to reply like immediately, like whatever his first thought was. And
Right.
it is. I think this is another very important point that indie developers need to understand. when you are the face of a company, when you are the person who is engaging, interacting with people, you do have to handle yourself differently. And this is something I was talking with the reporter about, and this is something that Rami and I chat about. The whole like bro culture aspect of how you interact with people is not how you want to talk to people as the face of your company.
No.
And it is one of those things that I know some developers don't like that. They don't like being having to, hold back or walk on eggshells like that. But in the same breath, do you really want someone to take a screenshot of your forum saying, all of you are too stupid to play my game, or
Uh-huh.
how everyone is just a bunch of, I'm not going to say any words because I'm not that kind of guy,
Yeah.
because it will get immortalized, and whether you were right or wrong doesn't matter. All we have is that one screenshot of you
Mm-hmm.
saying whatever the heck that is.
Mm-hmm. And and like you could say, well, it's out of context. The context is you typed it and you said it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like the you're like, well, you got to see this or that. No, you said it that way. And you could have said it a different way.
Yep.
So
And like we've said, like this is all kind of that dance you need to do as a developer, and if you can't do that, get a PR person,
get a
get
PR
a good
person.
community manager.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, as we said at the start, this stuff really does matter for indie
Big time.
developers. And there's always a point that I bring up whenever we talk about marketing. The vast majority of people in this industry and outside of it, they don't understand, I think, the impact of marketing. They don't
No.
understand when you see a game on YouTube, when you see, pick any major streamer play your game, they don't quite comprehend how all that came to be. There are still
Right.
people out there who think, oh, I just send PewDiePie an email saying, will you play my game Y/N? PewDiePie says yes, my game is now millions of dollars sold. It does not work like that. Or if they see your game, or they see a game on IGN, or they see it on the front page of PSN, that you're going to have to be able to understand, how did the game get there? You're seeing the effect, you're not seeing the cause.
Right.
And that in of itself, I think there's so many studies and there's so many talks I think people need to see about that. I forget who I was talking to this past week. Oh, my friend Ken. We were talking about the failure workshop that GDC has, and like, I think there needs to be more of that. There needs to
A
be
lot more.
more of those talks, because
Yeah.
how a game succeeds and how it fails is crucial information, because especially when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, man.
Because I've seen, again, there was the, what was it, Hand of Fate. That game, it was a really great game. It was a critical success. It failed commercially, and the studio's dead now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just because you have a great idea, or just because the game is critically received, your game can still fail, and it's important to learn why that happens. And yeah, to Chris's comment, it's definitely a tough place out there, especially in terms of beliefs and obviously politics. Everyone loves to talk about politics, I know, online right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like you said, authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
politics, like all that
Mm-hmm.
comes into play, right? Especially if you're being yourself. And then there's kind of like a divide, and players can tell when they know, okay, so it's gone from a personal account to like then it's the corporate account, and then it's like, oh, well, it's the corporate account, and this is cringy, and that can totally destroy it in its own way, right?
Yeah,
Here, go for it.
like with GOG, when they put out like some like very like weird like Gamergate related promotions and stuff like that. Like, you need, again, as you just said, I think it's a really good point. There is a difference between, I am saying this from my account that has maybe 100 people follow me, versus I am saying this from my corporate account, the actual face of this company that could have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people following me.
Mhm.
And if you're not careful like that, it will hurt you. And again, this is why there are people out there who do PR. This is why there are classes and courses and everything about how to speak in front of a camera, how to properly convey yourself. And yeah, like Chris said, like you can, if you're respectful and people are still screaming, cursing, ranting at you,
Yeah.
you're it's kind of a lost cause. Like you're not going to be able to turn that tide. But the problem, of course, is if you start screaming, cursing, and ranting as the face of a company or the guy who's making a game,
Mhm.
that is going to kill your face or kill your public image. And there are people, but I guess final point really fast. There are people who are going to flock to those kinds of people, as we
Yeah.
saw. But
Yeah.
is it really worth it? Is the
Yeah.
question.
Is it worth it? And like, you're not. That's not being accessible
Mm-hmm.
for the majority of the people. Like, that's more niche, right? You're niching yourself down to this different, angrier sect
Mm-hmm.
of whatever, and then you're also if you're going to have a community in the game, it's going to be toxic and eat itself alive anyway. Like, that's kind of the thing. Like, you're leading it toward when you're,
Mm-hmm.
when that's those are the people you're attracting, right?
Yeah.
So.
And it does kill your mainstream approval. I was
Hmm.
talking with the reporter, and she was saying that why aren't there more games for women? And I can rattle off half a dozen games that are really great that have female leads, but none of those games are being marketed. And for a lot of consumers out there, all they know about a game is what either A, they see a YouTuber cover it, or B, if they see it as an advert somewhere.
Right.
And it's again that very tough case for indie developers that you need to get your name out there, but you don't exactly have that same budget and that same kind of reach as a Nintendo, as Sony. Like what we've joked about before, that like Nintendo can just put out a cardboard, cut a cardboard piece of cardboard with a mark on it that says "new game coming" or "new Mario game," and that's all the marketing they need. Like
Yeah.
that one
That's
image, they're
it.
done for the next year.
Yeah. The new game's coming, and then everybody's freaking out, and that's all
Mm-hmm.
you got to do for an indie game. You got to do way more than that. You put out a picture, say new game's coming, and people are just going to be like, "Oh, really? Cool."
Why should I care?
Why should I even care? Like, I'm sorry for even thinking about it.
Yeah, and it is a very tough element when it comes to these games because you may not have a market friendly game. If
Hmm.
again, if you're working on an adventure game, or if you're working, I've seen developers who are now working on Zachtronics likes, and even Zach has trouble marketing his games because
Yeah.
how do you market a programming heavy title to the mainstream? It's a wait, better yet, it's a chemistry game
Yeah.
masquerading as really a hardcore programming
Program
game.
game.
Let me put that on as a Super Bowl ad. I'm sure people would love that. In between, a car commercial and a beer commercial,
Right.
here's
Right.
his programming game.
You
And
know. Go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
I'm still laughing from that. I'm just seeing it now. I'm seeing it now.
And again, like there you go, Chris. Or if you beat this game, you get a tech industry job. But that's that challenge. That
Yeah.
one of the other aspects of marketing that I think another aspect that I think is lost on people is name recognition. And this is
Right.
what we talk about when it comes to branding and why your first game most likely is not going to be a success
Right.
because nobody knows who you are.
Nobody knows who you are. And
And
so it's like, okay, don't and like, okay, so no one knows who you are. So for one, you got to be consistent and let people know who you are, right?
mhm.
So that's why consistently showing your work, consistently showing what you do, what you're about, talking to people, going on podcasts, discords, you name it, right? Just being
Mm-hmm.
a part of it and slowly growing and showing who you are. So then when your second game comes out, you'd be like, well, this dude already made one. I played that one. Here's the second one. And then slowly you start building your clout, right? Slowly but surely. And then it could just be like, hey, I'm announcing another game, and you'll have enough people that are following you that'll just play it just because it's your game, right? They don't even need to know what it's about. They're just like, hey, Josh is making another game. I want to see what it's about. This dude's wild. Let's see what's up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it can work, you know?
Yep, and it is about having that kind of synergy between your name, your products, and your reputation. It's something that I
Exactly.
see with, with myself. That, I write, well, I also make videos on YouTube. And then that translates into the books that I do, which then translates
Hmm.
into my library talks.
That's
And
right.
people find all this stuff.
Hmm.
And if they go to one thing and they like it, they're going to go to the next thing and the next thing. And it is very much that kind of buildup. And it is, again, like something that we've said a lot on these shows and with a lot of developers. It becomes that snowball effect
Hmm.
if it gets done right. It's
Hmm.
why companies like KitFox, Clay, Supermassive or Supergiant,
Supergiant.
they once you get going, it is very hard for you to sink your own game unless
Yeah.
you deliberately do something horrible. It's your name is going to carry that weight going forward. But
Right.
conversely, it's very hard to get that going from your very first title.
Exactly. I mean, you tell me super giant game, I'm gonna look at it no matter
Hmm.
what, right? Like even if it's not even my genre, I'm gonna be like, well, they probably figured out how to make that genre that I hate good. You know what I mean? That's what I would think. And but that takes so much time to get
Yeah.
there, right?
And Clay Entertainment is very much that same route. I mean, look at
Hmm.
their last three games. You have deck building roguelike, you have super hardcore colony sim physics, you have, survival in grim dark fantasy world. That is three completely different
Yeah.
genres, three
Yeah.
completely different markets, and they make it work. Now, does every one of their games, become hugely successful or, as successful as the other ones? No. I
No.
think Oxygen not included. I think it's Oxygen and then Don't Starve or vice versa as, number one and number two for the company.
Mhm.
But you can still see that quality. You can still see that branding of Clay Entertainment with each one of their games. And that is kind of where you really have to consider yourself. That's kind of like mid to late tier goals as an indie
Right.
developer that you
Right.
want people to see your company logo or see your name and go, "Oh, they're making a
Oh,
game?"
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
one of my favorite indie devs, a local Melito, who does a lot of modern retro titles, is very much that same vein. That
Hmm.
he has built up that very specific niche, that very specific name, so that when they put out something, it is an excitement. You don't want people to go, "Who?
Yeah.
Who's putting that game out?
Who's what?
I don't know who that person is."
Exactly. Exactly.
And for developers in terms of that branding and that clout, again, you can't start with it. And I've seen even like people who come from the AAA or AA space
Yeah.
in the independent space
Yeah.
still think that that works for them. But that again is one of the advantages of indie devs. That if you are
Hmm.
the person behind Slay the Spire or
Hmm.
Forager or Don't Starve or whatever, people automatically associate, who you are with that game. If you say you were the third programmer on the AI team of
Yeah.
Battlefield 2020, people are like, okay, it's like
Okay.
cool, I guess. So
You got
what
hired at neat, man. Wow, you got a cool job to have.
that really sounds like when I told these nurses I was on YouTube, like, oh, we have a celebrity here. He has a video
Ah,
with over 1,000 views on it. I'm like, yeah, that means nothing. Like it killed. Like I don't. I think they were being sincere about, but it was hurting my soul as they were
right,
saying that.
right. I understand.
And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I can't believe we've been going for almost an hour on this one.
Well,
But
honestly, I feel like I don't know why. I feel like we could go two on this one, but
uh, I guess any points for you?
I've literally forgot them as we come up with new ones. I try to write them down, and then we went to new ones. So I'll just have to. No, I think no, that's it for me then.
There you go, Chris. You should put that as the marketing point on your store page. And I think another aspect about this that a lot of indie developers tend to mess up on is that it is very much everything needs to be high quality when it comes to your marketing. You do not want a weak link in that chain. And this is something that when Charlotte and I did an inquiry, so we talked about that. If your store page is bad, but your website is good, then you're basically tossing out dice. You're
Mm-hmm.
tossing out your chances of if somebody only views my store page, they're gonna hate my game. But they view my website, they're gonna love my game. You're putting bullets in the chamber in terms of playing Russian roulette like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what you want is for everything to be as high of a quality as you can. You want that level of consistency. So
Consistency.
if go ahead.
What that shows me, like for example, if I saw like a really high quality website, but the Steam page was really bad, that shows me a lot of like not good things that maybe only if you were a developer would see. That means like you have media and you have all the media and the copy on your website, but you didn't transfer that over to the Steam page and make it. Do you know what I'm saying? That shows a lot of like worse to me than I think it really says.
Yeah, or you have all these social media platforms. You list none of it on your website. You list none of it on store page.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And again, it's all about presentation. That's where marketing really comes from. It's about presenting
Present
yourself
yourself.
in your best light. And
Exactly.
if your best light is horrible, how are you going to convince somebody to trust you to give you five ninety
Right.
nine,
It's
twenty
like, no,
four ninety nine?
don't look at that one. I mean, everything else is cool, but that one, I mean, I didn't put too
Mm-hmm.
much effort. Don't worry about that. And it was like we were telling everything how everything is secular and like or
Mm-hmm.
secular and adds to each
Yeah.
other. So when you mean okay, from my books, from my streaming on YouTube, from my podcasting, everything
Mm-hmm.
from my Medium articles, everything leads to something. And you do the same thing in marketing and game dev, right? You'll
Yeah.
catch my Twitters on YouTube, and from there they'll go to my Discord, and from there they'll find out what I'm making, or I list what I'm making in the Discord and to the
Mm-hmm.
YouTube on the Twitter. So everything goes back and forth. So no matter what, wherever you find, say you go to my Twitter, you can find everything from there. You go to
Mm-hmm.
my itch.io page, you can find everything from there. You can find my Twitter, my YouTube, my LinkedIn, wherever you want to know, my email, phone number, everything is on everything, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that I do constantly. I'm not saying I'm the best, but it's just something that I do. So every piece of social media I have, whenever I update something, everything updates the same. It'll
Yeah.
try and have the same graphics. It'll try and have the same information so that everything is cohesive and matches, and it looks as professional as I can be at my current level, right?
Yeah. And like my weak point right now is probably my Patreon because I can't think of like good stuff to do on there to get people to donate to it.
Yeah, yeah,
And it
I
is
feel you.
tough.
That's
And
tough.
one of the things that I've had to learn the hard way is that when you have one of these pipelines or one of these sources for your marketing, you have to do as much into that as you do to all your other ones. It's
Everything.
kind of like gardening that if you're going to start a new plot or a new crop, you can't just, do it half as you all your other stuff. It has to be consistent
Right.
because
And
if
that is so funny you were saying gardening because I was literally going to say that. I was like going to say, okay,
Mhm,
say you want to grow a flower, a singular power, and a pot. Well, you need a pot. You know the materials you need.
mhm,
You need a pot. You need a dirt. You need the plant, the soil, and water. And then you need a time frame. It's going to take this long for it to do that. So that's a part of your budget. How much am I going to spend on the materials? How much labor is going to be involved? And then what's the end result?
mhm.
And basically, that's the way. Just like you're saying, that's how you would want to look at everything and break it down, right?
Yep,
So
and I think as another thing that I was weak on is that my earliest videos, the stuff that's the longest on my channel, have the weakest in terms of SEO, in terms of the thumbnails. There are people who find me from thumbnails that are just my old, black image with text, which is like, and I say this when I give my talk about how to be on YouTube. Don't do what I did. This is a horrible thumbnail. But people still find me for that stuff. There are people who find me from articles that I wrote 3 to 4 or 5 years ago. Chris mentioned finding me from a Metroidvania piece. I'm sure I did that like 4 years ago.
mm-hmm.
You, as when you're doing marketing, when you're putting yourself out there, you never know what your reach is going to be. And you
Yeah,
want to make sure that if somebody finds you from any one of your
anywhere that
options,
all connect.
and that is as of high quality. You don't
Yes,
want somebody to find you on that one video or that one piece you wrote that was horrible, it was bug filled, it was a bad day, you weren't really thinking about it, but that's going to be their impression of you.
exactly, exactly. And like I was saying, maybe there's more than one impression. Like you do have second chances, but man, if it was really bad and you were like,
Mm-hmm.
there's sometimes there's not second chances, right? And if especially if you don't give them an option to be like, well, consistently you can check out this other stuff, and maybe if there was something in there that they might link into and want to, and it's not there, well, then you lost them for good, right?
Yeah.
So
And you have to be able to convey all this, again, in a screenshot, in a 5 to 10 minute video, in whatever the heck that you do. Like, I've been posting our cast and stuff on Anchor now, or on Spotify, which means I have to make sure that all the links are on there. I have to give it proper
yes,
titles. And
yes.
again, it's tough work, but.
It's tough. I was doing I forgot what I was doing yesterday for my Epic Mega Grant, and it's just like getting the correct emails, getting the correct links.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff's like at hours and hours of your time, right? You know what I mean? And so it's wild,
uh,
but you have to put in the work.
Yeah, if you want to talk about emails, I'm contacting
I
libraries
know.
right
I
now,
know.
and I'm in the apparently in the state of Vermont. It's all listed by city. So I've been collecting 280 individual
Hey,
library emails. I have to send in one massive email,
did you
and
get flagged, bud?
oh yeah, I'm pretty sure Google's flagging my account by now from all the emails I'm sending. I think the limit is 300 emails a day before
Mm,
Google comes down on you. So I need to be
yeah,
really, really
fair.
careful about that.
299.
Yeah, but yeah, it is tough work. And the sad part, and this is I think one of those bittersweet things, is that as an indie developer, or even as somebody who's on the small side, you're going to have to do 5 to 10 times more work to compare to even get close to somebody
Close,
who is
man.
bigger than you. And
Right.
it sucks.
Right. It
There's
sucks
there's no
bad.
way of saying it.
I was working on the when I was first working on like some of the Steam capsules, and my team member Joe Bob, he was sending me some images. He was like, "Well, look at this Steam capsule," and I mean, and it was nothing. It was like the worst font or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
it was like Final Fantasy, and I was like, "Well, Final Fantasy can use whatever font they want to. They don't it don't matter. But for me, we
Mm-hmm.
got to put in like 20, 40 times the work. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's just the way it
Again,
is.
Nintendo with a cardboard piece. They sold cardboard. If you remember that
Cardboard.
thing,
It's
they
a
literally sold.
cardboard.
Nintendo can sell anything as long as you put Mario or the Nintendo logo on it. And for a lot of developers out there, that is definitely the height of that is the dream in terms of
Dream.
marketing success. But unfortunately, most likely if you're watching this right now or listening to us, you are not going to hit that point.
No.
So,
Sadly, no. Sadly, no. It would have to be you very lucky something, but
mhm.
probably not. Sadly.
Chris brings up a good point about mailing lists. That's something that I
Yeah.
never really thought
Yeah.
about, but I'm
Yeah.
sure as a developer, it's something that's been on your mind.
Oh, definitely. Right. So I mean, originally when I first started, like, not even when I first started for Steam, of course, wish list. the main thing. So that's something that I push constantly, to wish list the game. We monitor the metrics. I monitor the traffic. So where it comes from, if they come from Twitter, if it comes from Steam itself organically or not. And yeah, wish lists are really important, and also mailing lists. So that way,
Hmm.
if they get both of those, you know that they are at least moderately interested and most likely will want to buy it. And so that way you can keep them posted. If they don't follow you once, to you could, they'll just get that email.
Hmm.
If they're on your wish list when your game's put out, they'll know, right? They don't have to
Hmm.
be paying attention. They'll get that email saying, hey, this game's for sale now, you want to get it?
Hmm.
And so that's one of the most valuable things about wish lists, is that whoever wish lists it will know when it's out. And it'll also know when we set sales and stuff like that. You get like one or two Steam gives you. So wish
Hmm.
list is really, really big. uh, yeah.
I have like over 900 games on my wish list, so every 2 days I get like 5 emails from Steam saying, "Hey, one of your games is on sale. Here,
What are your
15 of
things?
your games is on sale."
Yeah.
And when the Summerfest happened, hey, 567 games on your wish list are on sale. Why don't you go buy them now?
Go get them all, man.
And yeah, and I think a lot of that again is that it's the customer putting in the effort to put on their wish list. Like it's the difference between seeing a Twitter ad or a Facebook ad and actually having it on there. Again, it really leads back into that rapport or building that rapport with your consumer base.
With your consumers, right? And like I try and be like, I'm not trying to be, I am who I am, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when I talk to anybody about my game or whatever, it's a human connection, right? I'm not a corporation, I'm just me. And so, but actually what Chris, get back to Chris. He was talking about mailing lists and wish lists have a greater result on purchases than Twitter and social media followings, which is true. And I can verify this with my numbers, right? If
Mm-hmm.
I have a number, there's something called Wishlist Wednesday on Twitter, and so on that day, everybody's posting whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Please wishlist my game, whatever. Um, or you can do it various times, anytime you want to. Wishlist my game. It's on my profile. It's on anywhere you want to find it. You can wishlist my game. So Google my name, and you'll be able to wishlist my game. And so like, and that took a lot of hard work. Like that was, I didn't just pay someone to do that. Like it was like years and years and
Mm-hmm.
years and years of just like being on the internet daily, saying who I am, pushing forward, and that was
Mm-hmm.
the only way. But yeah, this is true. Twitter is not really going to give you the conversions. It's going to give you the eyes, right? It's going to give you the
Mm-hmm.
eyes and the exposure that you need. And then it's up to you how you translate that, right?
Yep.
Where you go from there.
Yep, and that is incredibly difficult. About how do you take that
Hmm.
and run with it? Because we've seen developers who have dropped that ball.
Yeah,
Again, like
big
with
time.
Among Us, that Among Us is not as popular and it's not as big as it was today. The same goes for Fortnite. That there
Yeah,
are a lot of people who are just sick and tired of Fortnite,
yeah. And it
and
was like a total flop, right? When it
yeah,
came out,
yeah,
it was not good.
yeah.
Before I forget, oh my god, I already forgot. I
Uh
forgot. Go ahead.
oh. Was it about the wish list?
It was not. It was
Okay.
not about the wish list. Something else. Anyway, I'll try to remember.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the other point about this is that it is about getting that algorithm. It is about building your own presence there. So that way that these stores will promote you. But again, like I said earlier, with the Darkest Dungeon examples, with big name YouTubers, being promoted on Steam is not because they paid Steam off or they had an amazing game. It was that they did all the marketing beforehand.
Hmm.
People bought the game, and Steam said, hey, people are buying this game. Maybe we should promote it more.
Hmm.
And again, it's
Yeah.
why that circular process of marketing comes in. If you
Hmm.
do well, you're going to keep doing
Doing
well,
well.
so more people will buy it, so you
Hmm.
continue to do well, and it
Hmm.
repeats. But
Preach.
conversely, if you don't do it well, if you release your game and you get maybe 5 reviews, maybe 1 review in the first week or two, that's not taking like an arrow to the knee. That's taking like 27 arrows.
Yeah,
And you
man.
may recover. Again, like there are always exceptions to these rules. I'm sure somebody will always bring up an example of, oh, they had 5 reviews for a month and now they have 800,000 reviews. But those are exceptions. And more importantly, those are like the Hail Mary plays. You do not want to, as an indie developer or as anyone who's trying to run a business, you don't want to rely on, getting struck by lightning or finding a
Yeah.
4-leaf clover or anything like
Hmm.
that.
And,
Because,
to
yeah.
have a good tail end, you got to have a good front, right? You got to
Mm-hmm,
at least something like the tail end. If people talk about, well, there's tail ends to game. This is true, but there had to be a start to it. There had to be
mm-hmm,
initial. Like, you're not going to tail end from one review and then magically fix this. There's something wrong from the game. There was something wrong, whether it was the marketing, whether it's the game, whatever. There's a lot wrong with it when it's not, it was buried, whatever the reason is, there was something not considered. And then for you to magically be able to do that and get a tail end out of nothing, I mean, that's not even
mm-hmm.
possible. I don't think anymore in this environment.
Yep,
you
you're
know
not
I'm
going to, go from 2 reviews to 1.2 million reviews in a
Yeah,
day. It's not.
yeah.
And
even
people.
even Square, like with Final Fantasy, right? I
Mhm,
mean, that was an amazing thing that they fixed a flipping MMO uh,
mhm,
to nothing and did it in like a year and a half or something. Again, it's amazing, but that is a company with so much money and
mhm.
so much tech and so much things that indie gives. We don't have that, right?
Yeah.
Not even close.
And it took them, I think, like 5 or 6 years before they eventually overtook World of Warcraft.
Right,
And
right.
arguably, a lot of that was from Blizzard inflicting
Screwing
self-inflicted
up, doing
wounds.
it to themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was self-inflicted wounds, right? Exactly. So it was just right time, right place, and they got lucky, because
yeah.
there is a lot of luck still.
Oh yes. And again, this is why not only is marketing a very important aspect, but you will live or die based on it. Because if you
Hmm.
start screwing up, if you throw out your good name, you are just throwing out your company's reputation. And a lot of places do not recover from that.
Right, right. I mean, and it's like, the hard part about recovering is trying to, like, you're gonna have to go post mortem, and be like, what did we do wrong? And then you're probably not even gonna get right about what you did wrong if you got it wrong in the first place. So
Yep. And I'm trying to think.
hmm.
Like, we've talked about having a press kit, we talked about having a website. Once, and I think one of the final points I want to make is that once you start your marketing, like you shouldn't just immediately start promoting yourself the second you have, one line of code done. You want to start your marketing once you are confident in your product. Again, once you're at the point where you want people to look at your game. And when we say people, we don't mean your friends and your family or other developers. We mean like somebody like me, who I have no personal stake in your company. I have no personal stake in that. If you want me to look at your game, if you want me to start talking about your title, that's when you want to do marketing. And if you can get somebody like me or somebody who has never heard of you and they play your game, they go, wow, this is really good, or yeah, I can see this,
Hmm.
that's your sign that you want to start pushing that. And once you start, you cannot stop. You want your momentum to keep going up. You don't want to be like this. You want it to be just like a constant cycle of going up. You want more people to hear of you. You want to keep putting more stuff out. And if you don't do that, people are going to forget about you.
Right, right. People will quickly forget about you because there's so much, right? Like, wherever you're posting, whatever you're trying to do, there's a million other things popping up, being created. in front of you and after you, right? So you constantly have to the mind space that you can take up is very small, and so you want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you're consistently hitting that mind space. Once you've achieved it, once you've been able to get there, you can't relent. You're right, and
Mm-hmm.
because even when a game's released, right? A game's released, people can. We were talking about the lifespan of a game. I mean, how long do people give a game once it's come out? And they're like, it's dead.
It's like
Not going to play it again.
I would say
I
no more than a month these days.
I was going to say less.
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking
think. Yeah.
weeks, man. Like if that. And always need a backlog.
Oh,
This
I
is
know what
true.
that's about. My backlog doesn't end. My backlog is circular. It's Ouroboros, a snake eating
No,
itself at this point.
it's so.
Yep,
This is true.
and like when it comes to that level of marketing, about that constantly having to put stuff out, you need to. You also, I think, as another important tip, you need to be able to explain to people why your game matters. You need to be able to tell someone in 5 seconds, maybe less than that,
Hmm.
what makes your game unique. Is it
Hmm.
time traveling Metroidvania? RPG with giant mechs? Is it,
Hmm.
the Dark Souls of cooking visual novel games?
Oh
Whatever
man,
the
I like
heck.
that one.
There you go. Oh yeah,
I
we had
like
on the roundtable. We were talking about toast. So also, like we were talking about like how do we make a game about doing toast, and like ideas popped into everyone's head all at the same time. There, you
Nice.
have to be able to because if you can explain that, you can then put that into your marketing. You can put that into your bullet points.
What Chris is saying, a farming pig, exactly
Mm-hmm.
like my game, a farming samurai pig.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit of a catch. I don't know, maybe it is. But like Chris was saying, if you aren't excited about your game first, no one will be. I have to be the biggest cheerleader for my game. I have to believe in it
Mm-hmm.
100%, and I have to tell everybody else why you want to play it, why you're excited to play it, why I wanted to make it, and why I want you to play it, right? And then we got to get everything else right about it.
Yeah.
But that's like the core thing, right? So if I'm like, man, I don't know, it's just kind of like you're a game
I only
person,
worked on it, a few hours a
yeah, a few
year. I
hours,
just put it out there.
whatever, then nobody, people are gonna be like, whatever, dude, like I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. But if you're like, this is what I've been working for, my passion,
Mm-hmm.
I love it, you're gonna love it, this is it, you can go a long way.
Yeah. And again, if you want those evangelists, if you want people to go out there and tell them about your game, you need to get them pumped for it. You need
Pumped
to
up, yeah.
show that off. Again, I always go back to Darkest Dungeon, but they really are the quintessential example
Oh, it's
of
a genius game.
that, the
Genius.
snowball effect.
Yeah.
That the only reason I heard about it was because someone posted about it on one of the forums I visited, and the only reason they knew about it was because they were following the developer. They were posting, screenshots and concept art of that game.
Right, right. It was like, I think it was very organic, if I remember
Yeah.
how it came out. And when I first saw it, I was like, I don't know, but yeah, just genius. Everything about it, really smart design.
To Pug's comment, that reminds me of from the Simpsons episode when Homer's trying to promote bowling. He's like on the rooftop shooting the gun, and like Lisa goes, "Tell Dad to tell the story right." He goes, "No, he really did that." And she goes, "Oh." What I need to do is just like start throwing my book at people. Like whenever I
Mm,
go, just have like a few dozen copies. I go, "Here, take my book," and just
take my
start
book.
flinging them in stores. Would that be a considered organic marketing right there?
I'm gonna walk around. I'm gonna wear that sign, the billboard sign, and
Yeah,
I'll walk around by my game and throw.
yeah, exactly. So there is one point that I just thought of that this was kind of like the reason for suggesting this topic. This was something that I was talking
Yes. Hmm.
to the reporter about. Does local marketing work for indie games? And it's a very tough uh, thing to say because, like, she was talking about, well, why don't indie developers, take out ads in magazines or they take out, small local TV ads? And on one hand, if we talk about traditional media and traditional advertising, yes, that is kind of what you do. But again, I think this is like that challenge is that the game industry is global these days. And if you only focus
Local.
on, like this tiny little bit of it, you're leaving a lot of room out. And again, like no indie developer watching this is going to have the money for a national TV advertisement or, taking an ad out in every magazine or every like every state has its own local magazines. I get the ones here in South Jersey a lot.
Mm-hmm.
No indie dev is going to say, okay, if it's like $100 a magazine, I'm going to take
Yeah.
out 50 states worth of, it's easy, right? Just put that money in there. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And I see a lot of people are saying that. I know when you posted the tweet, a lot of people were saying we don't read. No one reads that
Yeah.
anymore. Uh, but I hate to say like I think that like man, any place you can market or get an eye is good, but it's probably, and I'd say like cost to benefit ratio probably not the best.
And that's the problem. Like, if it costs you $800, let's say, to put an ad, and let's say you get 2 sales from it, 3 sales from it, yes, those are 3 more people than you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But did that really make up that time, money, and effort? And like for myself, like it's one of the things I think about with the stuff I do on YouTube. And it's the challenge of my day. I only have so many hours a day to do all my stuff. I have to write, make videos, contact, put stuff together. If I spend an extra 3-4 hours of my day on something that maybe helps me 1%, 5%, I have to cut out the things that aren't working at 100% efficiency. And
I think like maybe 20 years ago,
Mhm.
it might have maybe 15 years ago, it went a bit a little more viable. Like you contact your local, like I'm the only one in
Mhm.
Toulouse, Arizona working on this game. And then they'd cover you, right? And then it
Mhm.
would be like free coverage. I think that might be a way of doing it, right? Just contact and be like, hey, I've
Mhm.
heard that before. Like contact your local school or contact whatever,
Yeah.
like and see if they could, advertise it there. Like just have an interview with you, and that might be a way. But as far as like paying for advertising, because when I would pay for
Mhm.
paid advertising, I mean the smallest one was like $60 or
Mhm.
like $80, and like no one's seeing it anyway. So yeah, it was I lost a lot of money when I advertised that way. It different business, not game dev, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was.
Yeah, and like that's the thing with my library talks, that I'm being a lot more concerned about how much money I'm putting out to visit
Right,
one of these libraries because
right.
travel is very expensive. Like somebody
Oh,
wants me
you
to
did.
come.
I thought you went virtual. You're actually traveling
No,
to them now.
somebody wanted me. Somebody's interested in me coming to
Oh,
Virginia in
okay,
July. But I'm
okay.
thinking in my head, I charged them $200 for the presentation. How much am I charging in terms of travel? If I stay at a hotel, if I have to get rental cars, if I have to do Uber.
Food,
Yeah,
Uber.
and it's that question of, is it worth me to lose $500-$600, maybe more, to go to one of these talks? And I'm at that point where I have to say no to that because my reach, and that's that strange thing when we talk about marketing. It's all about what the reach is going to give you, and again, how much work you have to put into it. And
Hmm.
this is why we say it's circular. That if I have a really amazing trailer on my store page, guess what? I can put that on YouTube. That work translates to another platform.
Hmm. You could take it to TikTok too. You could,
Exactly.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
if you do it like that, it's that old popular adage: work smarter, not harder. If I do something really amazing, if I have a amazing screenshot or amazing wow, mouth is dying, amazing 3 second GIF of my
Schmucks.
game, yeah, I can put that anywhere and everywhere. I don't need to do any more work on it. It's done. And this is what we were talking about earlier with the quality. That if I
Yes.
know I am amazing on Medium and I'm doing amazing on YouTube, that is all part of my routine. Like, I don't need to spend extra manpower and extra brain power to make something exclusive for this specific platform when
Right.
everything works in unison.
Right. It like from your marketing, the media, make everything you can as reusable as possible
Mm-hmm.
from your code to your copy to your media to your gifs to your video, everything, and think about how you can repurpose everything because
Mm-hmm.
me and Josh could both tell you how much time like even like a 1 minute, 2 minute video, or like even a 30-second video can take you so long. You wouldn't believe how long it could take it to get it right. And so you always have to your return on investment, right? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
only money, it's time. And sometimes time because you can't quantify how much you could have made doing something else
Yep.
sometimes. You know what I mean?
Oh yes. And again, you don't want to work on, let's say, a 20-second video that you're only going to show one time
One time.
and spend like 3 to 5 months on that. If you're
Yeah.
going to spend that time on that, you want something that you can show, every day on every platform. And yeah, and to Chris's point, yeah, being realistic is very important. And it is about getting that genuine look on your game or on your own brand. And again,
Um,
it's something that I do with Game Wisdom, that I put out at least I hope I'm putting out a very reputable personality. Like, I don't want people to see me as, angry gamer who hates uh, everything on YouTube and everywhere.
every game sucks.
Hmm.
No, I mean like your branding is consistent. Like everything you do across the board is the
Hmm.
same, right? So
Yeah.
you're good on that. Pugscape said, "What would you spend marketing budget on first?"
Hmm.
Do you want to take that one, Josh? I'll go first.
Yeah, go. Yeah, feel free.
Okay. So when it comes to marketing, like you always want to start like where you are. Like if you're at the very beginning, might not have budget, but let's say you have a little bit of budget to spend. So
Hmm.
at this level, we're already probably going to be publishing to Steam. We're probably going to be publishing to something, itch or something. I would focus most on the art, right? Getting what art is presented, like your trailer and your art for your game. So how are you going to present your game? You all the media that you want, I get that as cohesive as possible, and get like a trailer. So focus on a trailer, focus on like your Steam capsules. Like the artwork that you're presenting is super important because that's the first thing people are looking with their eyes at your game first,
Hmm.
and then they're going to start reading. So if at first it looks like a gorish horror show that they don't want to look at, they're going to look away and go to something else, right? So the first thing I highly always recommend is like all your artwork getting it. If you need to hire someone because you can't draw, hire someone, find someone to help you get that art together. Because if everything looks cohesive, it can go a long way, a very long way. If your art looks very cheap, everything else in your game is considered cheap, right?
Hmm. Yeah, you need to start with, again, whatever is going to give you the most value. And
Value.
art is definitely, I think, one of the big ones. And then you can also translate that into trailers, into screenshots, into things, again, that you can show people. Because, again, it doesn't matter if your gameplay is good if how you present it is not good. And yeah,
Right.
like, to Chris's comment about like old school games with sprites, like, pixel art is very hard to do at high quality. And there is such a wide spectrum between the two that you need to be aware of. And there are games out there that you can tell, like, the level of quality of their art. Like something like Owlboy, or when we played Soldiers on from the Steam Festival, that those two games had ridiculously high quality pixel art. And if you're trying to compete in that space, I think that could be another point that we didn't bring up about how do you show your game off, or how do you do research on other games? Because this is, again, I think this is another very important thing about this, is that just because you're not directly competing with someone, the eyes and the attention of the consumer is where you're having that competition. And if you're making a real-time strategy game and somebody else is making a real-time strategy game, you have to understand what is attracting somebody and what is repelling somebody from these games.
What I recommend is I recommend finding the devs, and like we all want to, like we will all talk. Like
Mm-hmm.
you hit me up and you ask me a question about a certain aspect of game development. I will gladly give you the information and things that I've learned through my journey. So hit up most studios if you are. No, I'm not gonna say most indie game devs. If you ask them, hey, how did you do this? They will almost immediately get back to you and answer that. So if you say, well, how many did you sell, or did you do this? They will usually divulge the information with you. So I recommend that, like networking. And so, okay, I am making a RTS. Let me look for indie RTSs that I know. And I'm not saying go for the super high selling, don't have time to talk to you. So you need to go a little bit lower, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and talk to smaller devs and that you know have sold at least a reputable amount somewhere you would like to get, and talk to them and ask them what they did, and that usually works most of the time. Most devs will hit you back and talk to you, so I really recommend that as one of the first avenues for researching. There's other like paid ways, and there's also researched ways, but sometimes just talking to the
Mm-hmm.
developer is the easiest way. Coming back, I almost, this was a thing I forgot about now that we're talking about developers. When we're talking about making sure everything links together, I'm not going to talk about, this is a developer that I know, uh, and he had something go super super viral on Reddit,
Mm-hmm.
super super viral, and I messaged him. I said, dude, do you have a mailing list? Do you have anything set up so that people can wish that he had nothing set up?
Mm.
So he had a super viral post. So legit, before you start posting anything, before you make sure you have places that the players can go back to, follow you, and wish list the game, mail list the game, because he missed out on like so much opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a sad thing, and I've seen it multiple times, but this was one of the largest uh um things that I've seen like that recently. So
This is why, like we said at the start, that you need to have a landing page. You need to
gotta
have
have a landing
press
page.
contacts. You need to have all this stuff basic before
Basic.
you get that going, because you want that foundation. You need, obviously, as well, you need a foundation to build on.
Hmm.
And to Chris's comment about, yeah, screenshots, that's what we say a lot in the increase. That we want your trailer, we want your screenshots to show variety. We want to know that your game is more than just, the same 40 seconds of footage repeat over 10, 20, 30, 40 hours. I
Hmm.
need to know by the time I look at the bottom of your store page what your game is. Because, again, if I'm confused about your game, why should I give you money?
Right. And
Eh,
if Josh is confused about the game, most likely the dev is confused about the game, right?
And the
Or
consumer is
the
definitely confused.
consumer is definitely confused about the game. So everybody is confused, everyone loses. Uh, So one of the main things is that, like, when you're developing a game, and I know it's hard when you're prototyping, but you should reach a prototype soon, and you should know, okay, I'm going to move forward with this. And like I said many many times in the podcast, if you're first starting out, if you're mid grade, keep your slope small, keep the game small,
Mm-hmm.
right? No reason that a game needs to drag out years and years and years, and then you post your first post on Reddit is, I've been working on this game for 10 years, please play it. Most people are going to give you a little pity, sad
Mm-hmm.
story, and probably won't. I mean, if you've been working on the same thing 10 years, one game, it's probably not going to be that good. But
Yep. And
yeah,
and it is, again, part of that element of the dance when it comes to game development, that you have to be able to manage your expectations. You need
yes,
to
yes.
actually plan out what your game is going to be, And more importantly, you need to be able to set a reasonable scope for it. And it is, I think, ultimately better to have in the span of 10 years to put out multiple games of adequate success versus trying to bank it all on that one mega title. Because again, in that span of 10 years, you could be building up a following. You could be having people who are enjoying game number one, who then go to game number
Game
two.
number 2.
And
Hmm.
more importantly, you should be growing from game one to game two to
Exactly.
game three.
Exactly. Exactly.
People want to see progress. They want you to know that, or they want to know that you're improving, that you are getting better, that you are becoming a name that can be trusted.
Right.
Because if you're not, or if you just show up one day with no recognition at all, people aren't going to follow you. And it is, unfortunately, one of the sadder points that YouTubers and streamers, they don't care about your sob story. A lot of them just care, okay, is this game big enough that I can, make a video and get people to watch it? Or will people be interested in seeing me cover this game? Like, for me, I'll play everything and anything people send me, and that's how
Sure.
I found a lot of very rough games, very diamonds in the rough. But again, I am very much the exception to this. And it's one of the things I say that if you are expecting me to save your game or that my name is going to magically earn your game hundreds of thousands of reviews, it's not going to happen. Again, that's me being tempered with my expectations and
Right.
being very assured as to what I can do for you.
Right. I mean, and like, not even that, like, you're not even guaranteed, like, even if you paid a streamer, play some high profile streamer to play your game, he could, like, that could be, uh, totally disadvantage to your sales.
Hmm.
Like, he could totally rag on the game. People see it and they're like, well, not interested in that. And just his personality didn't match like your
Oh,
game, right?
yes.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, if you show your game to a streamer when there's bugs and there's problems in it,
They're gonna
and they
tear it up.
call you out on it,
They're gonna tear it up, bud. They don't
ooh,
have time for
yes.
it. And that's also how they get views too, right? They get views from making fun of your game and being like, "Look at this fool dev." Like, so that's a part of the game too, right? So,
Yep, and I try not to go that far. Again, like I will never insult a developer. Like I will insult bad mechanics, or I will say something
mhm.
is not working, but I leave developers alone in that respect. But yeah, like there are cases where even if I'm trying to be kind, if I'm putting kid gloves on, people can see my face. They can
Yeah,
see the
yeah,
issues. I don't have to
yeah,
say that this game looks bad or that, this UI is confusing if somebody's looking at it and they go, Josh, what the heck is going on? And I go, I have no idea.
man. I don't know. It's a 4X game. I don't know.
Yeah. And to Paul's comment about negative press as press, I don't. I feel that in today's market, it's not as worthwhile than it was 15, 20 years ago. Like, I feel like the
Yeah,
days
like
where
in
you
the
could.
Flash era, right?
Yeah.
You could probably.
Yeah, I feel like if you think that, and this goes back to what we were saying earlier, that you're going to put out like a racist, misogynistic, whatever kind of statement, yes, people are going to hear about you,
Yeah.
but I think they're going to hear about you and then they're going to put up, stay away, don't go near this guy.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, like I'm not gonna call names, but there's just so many people that just, God, they go on Twitter, they do things in their games like you were saying, and
Hmm.
it's just get a PR person or just don't
Yeah.
don't speak.
I feel like we're past the era of like the cringe or the
Yeah,
edge lord, that
yeah,
kind of like I'm
yeah,
being controversial to be
yeah.
controversial. The like Howard
Right.
Stern effect. I think we're
Yeah,
past that in
way
terms
past that.
of in the
Hmm.
game dev space specifically. I would say
Definitely.
we're
Yeah, in
past
the
that.
game dev space.
Yeah.
Yes, in the game. Not in the whole world,
Hmm.
not yet. But in the game dev space. We're also past the part where you can put out a bad game and people are gonna play it because it's a bad game and it's funny to play a bad game. That's a long time gone also. So yeah.
Yeah. Like again, like your goal should not be to put out a bad game. Like, and it sounds very simple when I say that, but what I mean is that the game that you put out should be your best effort. And I do think people recognize that they can tell, I think, at the subconscious level, whether this developer is just releasing a game just to throw money or to get people to throw money at them, or if this is their best attempt at it. And there is that difference between the developer who messes up because they didn't know or maybe they made a mistake versus somebody who's intentionally cutting corners, and let's say they're leaving all temp art in their game and it just looks like this, like it looks like one of those like serial killer collages, like the board of like all the images put together.
Yeah, yeah, man. I think yeah, like we were talking about, consumers are so savvy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they can smell greed from a mile away, like 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time, I'm going to say like 5% of it is the dev didn't know any better. 5% of it is, I don't know, something random.
Mm-hmm.
But I think 90% of the time, gamers can definitely, there's like, this dude's just doing a cash grab. And it's
Mm-hmm.
sad. I don't think any dev should be doing a cash grab. This is an art. This
Mm-hmm.
is I think one of the most amazing mediums that we have. It's literally pure magic, I believe. It brings so many disciplines together, multidisciplinary. So trying to cheapen it in that way, that's not cool with Josh. I'm not cool
Mm-hmm.
with that.
Yeah.
None of the Joshes agree with that.
Yeah, there you go. And we put like a few more image capture. We'll get like 4 or 5 more judges to agree. And yeah, I guess we are about an hour and 40 in. We can probably begin to wrap
Wow, I
things
told
up.
you 2 hours. I told
Yeah.
you 2 hours on this one, Josh.
And again, when it comes to marketing, it is one of those concepts that, just like with game dev, that once you start thinking about, once you start putting it like front and center, you're going to think about constantly. You're never going to be able to turn that. There you go, the council of Josh's. You're never going to be able to turn that part off for better and worse. And it is something for a lot of developers, and I cannot, again, stress this enough. If you don't want to do marketing, if you hate marketing, if it is the worst thing in your head to do, hire somebody to do it. They will earn their money back a
For
hundredfold,
sure.
especially the ones that do this job right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
again, it's something you cannot ignore. Because again, I've said this before, I'll say it now, I'll say it again in the future. If your game is amazing and no one will ever hear of it or play it, what do you do with that knowledge, basically? Like, is that a success?
So definitely not a success. So you're only like, you can have the best game in the world, you can be the smartest dude in the world, you can
Mm-hmm.
all this, but if you don't know how to convey it, how to tell people and present it to them in an and appealing fashion so that they can understand your meaning and the pillars and the tenets
Mm-hmm.
of your game, no one knows. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Yep. And if you're not good in front of a camera, if you're not, the right person to put in a trade show or a
Right.
conference, have somebody on your team to do that. There is no shame in having somebody who does PR, having somebody who can go out there and talk to people, who can be engaging. Because again, not everybody is sociable. I know that very well. I am an introvert 10 out of 10 on the scale. And I've had to grow and I've been able to improve, to be able to talk in the camera and talk to people. Even when my mouth gets stuck or I get dry and lose
Right.
my voice. But
Right.
again, that is not the case for everyone. Like, not every introvert can put on an extroverted mask, and it's not fair to ask them to do that.
No, it's not. And a lot of the times you're butchering your chances of success if you have someone that's bumbling and fumbling and just not suited for the job. Just if you can't do it, there's always someone who's be willing to do it. And like Josh said, there's marketing companies that'll run circles around you and just produce results. Your money will be earned back, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you when you're at that point and you find a proper marketing and they do that day in, day out, and they know all the nomenclature, they know all the ways, they know the people, they know who to talk to, the channels, where to go, and you can't find that out overnight. And they've already done that and they got that down to a science. So go to the professionals for that way if you don't feel like you can, if you don't feel like you want to learn that
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it.
Yep. And to Chris's comment about what marketing is, yes, that is another very big point. That marketing is not about being greedy. It's not
Right.
about lying to people. It's not about the flim flam or whatever like the terms are for it. Because there are developers out there who say that marketing is cheating or
Cheating.
it's
Mhm.
not right.
Dirty.
No.
It's
Mm-mm.
dirty. It's greedy. And I don't know if I brought it up earlier about a game dev tweet. Um, they were mentioning, like there's such a stigma about game devs needing to make money. I don't understand
Mm.
where that comes from. Um, and I don't know where. I understand people's aversion to marketing, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us are introverts, like you were saying. A lot of us are not really big on
Mm-hmm.
present, like this is my game, and some of us feel bad about presenting it that way, like we're being fake, or we're not being true to our games like Origin or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it can feel dirty. But again, what I try to say at the beginning is that you're taking your game and you're just trying to present it in a palatable, a pleasant,
Mm-hmm.
and a digestible way for the consumer to understand, so that no one's confused about what you're making or what it is. Right? Everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows what you're doing, who you are, what the studio is, and that's basically all it is. Getting out there, getting exposure, showing the media, showing the trailer. You're not lying to people. You're not trying to to
Mm-hmm.
to get people. You're not tricking people, because you're tricking people if you're making like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, an asset flip or something. But even then, I'd like to have a discussion about what I think about asset flips someday. um,
Mm-hmm.
but even then, if you're putting your heart and your soul into it, you shouldn't feel bad about marketing your game, so that way you can live to make another game, a
Mm-hmm.
better game. We can grow, like you were talking about, and we can continue it, and we can keep growing and just make this medium, this art field, even larger than it is, what it deserves to be.
Yeah. And yeah, like it's also one of the reasons why I've been like kicked off of like Red, or I don't use Red, because if I try to promote myself, people are like, "No, we don't like that." But
Yeah, I
again,
don't
like
use.
we said, like the goal of marketing is for you to shout on the rooftops or from the rafters, "Buy my game, look at my stuff,"
Mhm.
and you need to be able to do that. And if anyone derides you for that or criticizes you, most likely they're not going to be in a position of success, or at
Right,
least
they're not
not success of what we consider. Like again,
exactly.
what Joshua just said, that the goal is at the end of the day, I need to bring in money to let me work on my next project. If I don't bring in money to work on my next project, my company goes out of business.
Exactly. And so that's just the way it is. Like nobody says, people, if they're going to their nursing job or something, they don't say, "Oh, why are you going to the nursing job, for money?" And it's like, well, that, and I care for people, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a good career, and there's many things. We need to eat. We have a family and got
Mm-hmm.
bills, internet. All of those things go together, and everybody knows those things, right?
If it,
So
in the perfect world, we wouldn't need money. We
utopia,
could just sit
utopia,
here and
baby.
yeah.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're not in that utopia setting. We're still in, I think we're more in Elden Ring's world
We're an
than we
elder.
are in
We're an
Utopia.
elder, bud.
Mm-hmm. Where's my double jumping horse right now? I could use him.
Be great, man. Be great. I go for a ride after this.
Yeah. But before this transitions into the Elden Ring appreciation cast, I think we'll say goodnight here. Josh, there you go.
Yes,
Perfect.
Josh Topia, man.
So we'll wrap things up here. And again, for people watching us live, recorded, or otherwise, if you have suggestions for topics that you want us to cover, if you want to expand on anything we discuss here, let us know in the comments down below. And do the liking, subscribing, commenting. You again do the SEO algorithm, that stuff that they demand of you.
Yes, they demand of it. They demand of it from y'all.
Yeah. So if you want to follow me, there are information on. You'll see my links up in the top right. You can check out the Discord and Patreon. And for you, Josh.
You just go to my Twitter, go to at casual_scrub. So CASUL_scrub. It'll be down in the link. And then you can find everything because remember, for marketing, everything is cyclical. So you'll be able to find me anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
My picture's even the same on everything. So
Yep. And I have the Spotify link down there as well. You want to watch it
my
or listen
link,
to it there.
yes. Please listen to Spotify. Do that. That's awesome.
I reorganize all my links down below so it's a lot cleaner. And yeah, and I love Chris, the student of due day. That is like the perfect retort there. But yeah, so we will be back around 5 p.m. ET next Saturday for another Key Games podcast. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Joshua, again, it is a pleasure hanging out with you
Always a
on
pleasure.
these weekends.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Josh. I had a great time talking. Told you we'd get to 2 hours this time.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll look forward to the next chat. Everybody, please leave some messages. Follow Josh. Join the Discord. Join in the convo. And follow us both. And everyone have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. So until next time, everybody, come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom. Where some of the art and science of games. Aw. And have cute little pug bobbleheads for a little toy. And have a great night, everybody. And see you next time. Take care.